Hi, this is Natalie Rydstrom with SBR Picks. Now, Super Bowl 2015 finished yesterday with the Patriots beating the Seahawks 28-24. And with that, the NFL season is over for another year. But whilst the NFL may be over, sports betting is not. In fact, there is plenty of ways to make money across the pond. Joining us right now is sports writer Kevin Stott to explain exactly how. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome, Natalie.
Now, NFL fans may think it's all over in terms of betting, but that couldn't be further from the truth. What do you think is stopping sports bettors from looking further afield like Europe?
I think it's just a matter of maybe interest and the amount of free time that people have, and then actually just making their first couple bets. I think a lot of football bettors are. In football, you have, you lay 7 or you give 7. There's only 2 possibilities. A lot of times in soccer with the 3-way line, the possibility of 3 different things happening might throw some American or some professional football bettors off, and they don't know how to do it. Plus, they haven't watched enough to have a body of work to know how to bet it or to know that a draw could happen in a specific game. And how do you get knowledge on something? You got to theoretically put that 10,000 hours of work into something to be good at it. So I think it's just a matter of time and desire, Natalie.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was having this conversation yesterday, actually, at the Super Bowl party I was attending, and the guy that I was talking to said that the main problem with soccer is that it's too low scoring for US sports bettors. Sometimes you can go for the full 90 minutes and not a single goal is scored, ending in sort of 0-0. Would you say that puts off US sports bettors?
Definitely. That's most definitely a perception. I was one of those guys 12 years ago, 10 years ago that was chirping. How can somebody watch 0-0? How can somebody, do this 1-1? How boring? 1-0. What's the point? One thing happened the whole game. Americans are I shouldn't say Americans. It's sort of countryist, but so many people just want their attention deficit disorder. They need the quick attention. They don't understand the beauty of the game of soccer, and one way to do it is you bet on it. When you bet on it, or when you have both teams to score, or any time player to score, you start watching specific facets of a soccer or a European football game, and then you learn from it. And then by learning, you get more knowledge to make intelligent bets. I think it's just a matter of doing it. But I was one of those guys that was talking about 0-0, and then I bet on Liverpool one time, and I won, and yay, a little satisfaction. I was happy. And then I saw Didier Drogba play, fell in love with Chelsea, and started betting it, and from there on I fell in love with the sport. So I'm a perfect example of somebody who said, this is boring, I could never see getting into it, and then by betting on it and following it and enjoying it, I get up at 5 in the morning now in Las Vegas to watch a European soccer.
A dedicated fan. But would you say that there is more markets to bet on in soccer?
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's especially offshore. That's one thing people don't realize. Living here in Las Vegas, we think we're the gambling capital of the world. But writing for you guys and just checking out all the markets in offshore in Europe, there are so many things to bet on. There's so many niches that you can find that if you're really smart and you're disciplined, you can find ways to actually make money and maybe possibly make a living as a professional bettor doing it if you're good enough and then smart enough. But you have to really pay some dues, and you have to know what you're doing. But yeah, the niches are incredible. I mean, the anytime really intrigues me is anytime goal scorer, and same in football, anytime touchdown. I've gotten pretty good at that, and it's just a matter of thinking things out, watching what happened, and then pinpointing who they might have to go to. And it's harder, of course, in soccer because there might only be 1, 2, maybe 3 goals in a game, whereas in football there might be, anywhere from 4 to 8 touchdowns in a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What advice would you give sort of our US viewers right now, if they were thinking about dipping their toe into sort of European soccer betting, but weren't quite sure? What advice would you give?
That's a really good question. I think the best thing to do is just start small. Like maybe put $100, $200 in an off. Well, I don't know if I could say that in America, but open an account or just bet small where you can bet legally, I guess. Just have a small attack. Don't go in there and just throw 100 on somebody you like because it's on television or because you heard the guy talk about Chelsea or Barcelona or whomever. You need to have a plan of attack, but don't set yourself up to lose one $100 bet on a 3-way line and then get bitter on soccer because you didn't approach it right. You should be very conservative in going into betting soccer. It's hard to understand at first. It takes a while. There's different lines. There's different terminologies for offshore Europe and America, and there's different options to bet on. So you have to know what you have to work with. And if you're smart, you will have an American market, an offshore market, and theoretically a European, which is an offshore market for Americans, to work with. So you know all the different things that are out there. Like we can't bet anytime goal scorer in the United States. So if somebody had an offshore account, theoretically, they could bet on somebody an anytime goal scorer. A lot of times, those have more value in my eyes than the games themselves. If the game is really confusing, but you think, and we're not talking about Messi and Ronaldo, of course. We're talking about guys whose value is decent that you could expect to score. Like maybe Shaqiri that we just talked about in Coppa Italia. There's just certain spots that value appear, but it's like investing in stocks or silver or anything. You have to do a lot of homework. You have to find a spot, and then you have to really think about it, and then get the amount right. You can't find this great killer bet and then put $20 on it. If you find something that's good enough, you got to go for it. But if you deem something recreational, Natalie, then you put a smaller amount on it. It's a balance of art and science in the long run, but it's always juggling those two.
Do you know, I was reading some interesting stats this morning. They said it was over 112 million people watched the Super Bowl, but it was over 600 million that watched the Chelsea versus Manchester City game. Obviously, that ended that 1-1 draw on Saturday. So there's a lot, there's a lot of interest behind soccer. Obviously, we head towards the Champions League now. What sort of leagues do you have there's European leagues, do you have your eye on?
I love betting the Champions League. I love betting Europa a little bit earlier. They're down to 32. I wrote about it in the article there on SBR. There's some good value. I put out a couple of good futures bets, I think, from the Spanish league in Europa. That's a good league, but the value is diminishing because all the teams that are crappy are getting knocked out. So all the good teams are still playing each other on a level of 32. In Champions League, it's even tighter. You have 16 teams left. To be honest with you, those games just aren't. There's only a couple matchups like Manchester United or Manchester City and Barcelona and Juventus. There's only a couple matchups that are really exciting for a round of 16. So it's going to be hard to make money. You have to pick your spots. There's going to be two legs in this next round of the Champions League, but that's a good way to make money if you have a good futures bet, like I have a good futures suggestion there, and then from a game-to-game basis. But you're going to have lines that are way out of whack, like a Barcelona at home might be minus 600, 700. So you have to figure out, how do I want to use that? Do I use it as a parlay minus 600? Do I risk Asian handicap and lay 2 to get it closer to even? There's always a juggling process. And then a lot of times when you mix things together, it's the one thing that you didn't think was going to mess you up that messes you up.
Well, do you have, say, a couple of tips or picks, as it's known on your side of the world, a couple of picks there that that maybe our viewers could maybe have take a gamble on? What would you suggest?
In terms of soccer? Yeah, most definitely. In the article, I talked about it. I think I'm a big fan of soccer to begin with, and I watch English Premier League more than anything. But what I've noticed from doing this for almost 10 years now is that right now, this particular point in time, La Liga, Spain is the cream of the crop. They have three teams that are cutting their teeth on each other: Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, and the defending European champions Real Madrid. They're all banging on each other. The only team that can hang with those three, in my opinion, is Bayern Munich from Bundesliga. So to me, there's 4 teams that are really good, Natalie. Then there's a gap between Juventus and Chelsea and Manchester City. So I think that just knowing that these Spanish teams are so good, and they have to play each other every week in league and in the tournament over there, they just get that much better. So when they have to go out and play teams from Greece or Turkey or England or Germany or wherever, they're tougher because they've sharpened their teeth by beating up on each other. Therefore, I really like the defending Europa champions, Sevilla. They're like 16 or 18 to 1 to repeat. That's great value in my eyes. I also like Villarreal in the Europa League. So I think taking those two, they're 20 to 1. Taking those two and putting a decent amount of money might create a hedge. You might have a final. I don't know how it's going to line up, but you might have a Sevilla-Villarreal Europa League final, in which case you would have both sides at 16 to 1 or 18 to 1 or 20 to 1 or whatever. I really like that. As far as Champions League, I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna stick with my heart and the art this year. I think Atletico Madrid is going to win the Champions League. They're not scared of Barcelona. They're not scared of Real Madrid. They've been sitting at 16-1 for a little bit here. Once they get beyond this stage, which I'm expecting them to do, the odds are going to go down, like happened last year. But I think Atletico Madrid, even though they lost Courtois and Costa, they have probably the best coach in European soccer. There's huge value there. Nobody thinks they're sexy enough because they're always looking at Real Madrid and Barcelona and maybe Bayern. But I think Atletico Madrid is going to sneak in and maybe win it. And here's another thing, Natalie. If you do get it at 16-1 and they do make the finals, you can hedge. You have a piece of paper or you have a bet that's 16-1 on whatever amount with Atletico Madrid. And I think they're that good. They're feisty. They're great at home. They're well coached. They're disciplined. They play great defense. And they just don't care who their opponent is. And they actually might have one of the biggest hearts in all of sports, and they play as a team, and they have incredible fans. All these things. It's actually, I'm glad you asked me that. I mean, I wrote it one way, but saying it, I really think Atletico Madrid is going to make a run at Champions League this year, and I think there's value for the bettor in knowing that at this point in time.
Okay, so there you have it. If you want to check out Kevin Stott's article, find out more about what we think on this subject, simply go to sportsbookreview.com/soccer or follow the link in the description below this video. Kevin Stott, thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome, Natalie. Thank you.